Welcome back. The Minister of Human Settlements, Thembi Simelane, has dispatched the emergency housing units to the disaster-affected areas in Limpopo and Mpumalanga. The team and provincial departments are currently conducting physical verification of all households impacted by recent heavy rain. For more, we are joined by Minister Thembi Simelane of Human Settlements. Minister, very good evening to you. And unfortunately, a tragic start to the new year, just devastating seeing the effects of these floods on the people of Limpopo and Mpumalanga. If you could just tell us more about your department's work on the ground.
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to our viewers, and our condolences to the families that have lost their loved ones, both in Mpumalanga and in Limpopo. The responsibility for the Department of Human Settlement in relation to disaster, in repair and relocation of individuals or families' households that could be on the riverbanks that would have lost either their properties or their houses demolished by the pressure of the water. In both provinces, we are counting around 4,000 now, with Limpopo leading at about 1,600, closely of households which have been totally demolished by the pressure of the water. We are working hand in hand with the municipalities, both in Mopani and in Thembi, led by the Office of the Premier, Dr. Popira Matuba, to make sure that we look into the relocation of some of the families who were closer to the riverbank. It wouldn't be sound for government to rebuild in the space that they've been washed away on, because it's the increment due to climate weather conditions that the water may possibly gather even in future in the areas where they are. So we are hard at work. Our teams are both in Limpopo and in Mpumalanga, and I must appreciate the provincial government responses in relation to making sure that we jointly in our job operation committees work together to make sure that we speed up the relief delivery of temporary residential units so that we could be able to allocate land appropriately as government and build long-lasting solutions for our needy families.
And Minister, speaking about speeding up relief as well, you've dispatched the emergency housing unit. How exactly will this work?
Well, our policy has got 3 stages. We are doing away with stage 1, which is temporary emergency services, where we usually utilize a hall or a church that is donated or given to us, to government at an emergency. But our temporary residential units, these are temporary houses where we put our people in the meantime. We are estimating that we should, at least in a position of about 2 months, to have received a formal allocation of land from municipalities, and we start to prioritize them for the building of RDP houses. So that's how our policy works. We intend to keep our people at least in a TEA, which is an emergency accommodation, no more than a month, and then we put them into the residential. So when I'm saying the provinces have been accommodating us and making sure that we jointly work, we are actually having family members and relatives who have accommodated their loved ones where possible, so that we could be able to put the temporary residential units. These are hardboard houses that we build. They are sustainable, they are durable. In some instances where we're unable to build within a 12-month period, those houses can be able to last for a period much longer. In fact, when I was in KZN, where we've built a house and a temporary residential unit, community members request to say, we've been utilizing this house, please don't demolish it and keep it. So the standard and the quality is good. It is that it is not of brick and mortar, but we're able in 10, 14 days to accommodate our family members so that they are not in the streets. They could be able to put something that they've salvaged out of the demolished houses, and ultimately into the 40 square meter house that which we call RTP in our common language, which we will be building for them as a permanent solution. You will recall we're facing a similar situation as we did in the past year of 2025 in Mthatha. If I'm not wrong, I think we built around 136 TRUs, which are temporary residential units, to make sure that we accommodate. The municipality has now forwarded land, and we're trying to fast track the building of the houses so we could ultimately take them to a more safer side. So the challenge which usually causes a delay so much is that the availability of the land, remember, needs to be tested. You need to do a proper EIA, you need to do a registration and make sure that it is designated and it passed the test of residential and it's hygienic, and it take all the measures that are needed so that you could be able to build a permanent solution for our people. Must not be dolomatic, quite a number of areas of issues that you need to make sure that you test and then be able to relocate in a very objective manner.
Now, Minister, last year we saw survivors of the 2022, KZN floods being evicted from what were temporary shelters. What assurances can you give that that won't happen in this case around? You're saying that these temporary residential units, they can stay there for up to a year even. But these residents who were moved to these temporary shelters from the KZN floods, they stayed there for years.
Well, yes, I agree with you. And this is not what our policy has designed. But you will remember that there are areas like in KZN which are more prone to disasters, that even sometimes our fiscus is unable to accommodate. But also you may recall the team that we wanted to move from Lamontville to Ward 5, the land which was accommodated, some were not favorable to moving, which is what we do in terms of engaging with them continuously to show them the danger. Those who were close to Umlazi River, some refused up to today to move to where we're supposed to build for them. But our view as government is that we can't build where they are. But the city of eThekwini has taken strides. If you know, we're building about 1,500 houses in Konobi to cater only for the people who were affected by the 2021 and 2022 floods, culminating into the 2025, those who are in TRUs. Our intention is to ultimately, in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, cover around 5,000 households to relocate them from areas where they are using the disaster. Our budget for disaster is not major. That is why we need Minister Hlabisa to assist us by declaring a disaster so that we could reprioritize. The overall annual budget for disasters for this financial year is 330 million. And if the province of Limpopo alone says they need about 1.4 billion, the same with Mpumalanga, it does indicate that we'll have to reprioritize our fund from some of the projects which we're supposed to start, but make sure that we accommodate people who are now landless and houseless.
Speaking about reprioritizing as well, we do know that South Africa does have a housing problem. Your department has a very long waiting list of people who are waiting for homes for many, many years now. And now add into the 4 adverse weather. You're already playing catch up with previous floods. You're already playing catch up with people who are on a very long waiting list for housing. There's already a deficit that you've mentioned. You've got 300 million rand for a disaster management budget. One province alone needs over 1 billion rand. Minister, clearly something's got to give here.
Well, look, our policy refined. Our white paper is sitting at the table of discussion in Parliament. But what it suggests is that if you look into our list of people awaiting houses, it's around 3 million. But in its closer look and assessment, it's people who are below the social sector grant allocation, meaning they are not necessarily the elder, they are not people living with a disability, or they are not a child-headed household. We've introduced the system of service stands, which is relatively affordable than building houses, which means a person of your age, my age, younger, or even slightly older, we build, they are staying in shacks. We give them service land, which we call service stands, and allocate them there permanently, such that they could be able to build for themselves as time goes on. And we prioritize the 30%, which is people living with disabilities and the elderly and child-headed household, to build for them. That takes our list to around 30% and reduces the 3 million tremendously. And we're looking into ensuring that we do that. We're running a pilot of releasing, which we are hopeful by March or April this year we'll be able to do that, assisted by CETA, to be able to say to you, who have we built the house for, where, so that you can check yourself if you have a house in your name or not. And we could be able, in that way, to cleanse our data and be able to get back the houses that community members are no longer using, and they might have handed them over legally or illegally, so that we could be able to allocate people who need the house. The policy has always been very clear that if you no longer using a government house, we have a right of reply first. But it has not happened in most instances. But we are hoping that we should be able to allocate to quite a number of people who are in our waiting list to receive houses.
Minister, good luck with helping those who have been affected, and thank you so much for joining us.
I need it, eh?